Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I'll be installing wood framing and furring strips in the van. Hopefully you can pick up a few helpful tips along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is episode 3 of this van build series, and if you missed the first two, I'll have a link down in the description to those episodes. And today I'm going to get started on the wood framing in the van. And the first thing I'm going to do is the ceiling here, and I have these 1x2s here that I just need to cut down the sides and screw into all these cross beams. Before you start though, I would recommend measuring each one of these beams from the floor, because it seems like every Dodge van, it's a little bit different. There's always one or two that are coming down a little further, and I measured each one. They're all identical except for this one is 3/8 of an inch higher, so or I'm sorry, lower actually to the ground. So this one kind of sticks down a little bit. I put an X on it. What I'm going to do is put in the pieces of wood on all the other beams, and then I'll save this one for last so I can get an exact measurement of how much I need to rip the pieces of wood down so it all lines up. So you want this all to be level, otherwise when you put your cabinets in, it's not gonna line up right. It's not gonna look good. So these are the screws I like to use. They're metal self-drilling screws. You can get these at Home Depot. They're 1.25 inch, number 6. And you can see there's some holes in this beam, and you don't want to drive your screw into the hole and miss in the wood. So what I do is I put all the screws in ahead of time, make sure they're all lined up, and then I could just drive it all in at once. One other thing I wanted to mention, I've seen some people use just some plywood and just rip down a bunch of strips about this width and use that as their nailers, but I really wouldn't recommend that. It's not going to be strong enough, especially when you're screwing cabinets and things into it and there's a lot of weight holding on it. And especially on the walls here, I wouldn't use strips of plywood. Now that I have some of the boards in, I can kind of show you what I was talking about earlier, how these beams are not even. You get a straight edge, and you can see I have it lined up here to here, and this one just comes down a little bit. So we're gonna need to rip maybe an 1/8 inch off of this one, and I think this one too. This piece ripped down, and when I take my straight edge up against it now, you can see there's no wobble at all, completely touching. And I think I need to do the same thing on this beam here, and we should be perfectly flush on all of these. Next, we're going to put a beam over here, and this will compress when we screw it down. And I'm going to put it up first and then measure, but I think it's going to be flush here. Be careful behind here. As I was just showing, there's a few wires you need to push back first before you screw everything in. Just release the clips, and you can see the wire right here. Just going to push it in with a screwdriver or your finger, and just keep it behind where you're putting your screws so you don't go through that wire. So also you can see in here it's a little bit too difficult to get your screw gun in here to hit these screws. So I've showed this in my video before. This thing's really great. It's a angled driver bit, and this will go right into your impact driver, and then you can just screw in like that. I'll put a link in the description down below for this. People really seem to like this thing. So that came out perfect. I needed to take an 1/8 inch off of that front beam there, and then the two back here as well. But you can see everything's all lined up perfectly all the way down. So I really recommend that angled drill bit. That thing makes a huge difference. It's kind of impossible to get in there without that. So to deal with this rear section here, I just took my straight edge, lined it up with the other beams, and then took a measurement. And I've got, from the high point here, 1 3/4 inches. So I have these 1x4s, which are actual 1x4 inches. That I'm going to glue up here like that. And then got a little scrap wood to hold it up while it dries. That'll go like that. So once I put the 3/4 over this, it should all be lined up nice and even. Okay, so I let this dry overnight. I had to add a few little paper towels because it was dripping a little bit when I did it, but I'll just pull all that off in a minute here. But yeah, definitely sturdy. Alright. So now I can just add a 3/4 piece like this on top of that, and that should be perfectly flush with these beams here. And then I can also build out around the fan. So there's kind of a curve in the ceiling, and when you screw this in, these are pretty stiff, and I don't want to have all that stress where it might maybe pull the glued piece off the wall when I screw this in. So a little trick I like to do is to take one of the cross beams and cut all these little slits in it all the way through, about a 1/2 inch down with the miter saw there. And now this piece is much more flexible. It's very easy for it to flex now, and it's not going to have any stress on the glue. It'll just flex and screw right in, and it shouldn't pull these pieces off. So you might want to try that. So there's your finished product. You can see it had no problem making the curve. It's not pulling the glue down or anything. That should give us something nice to screw our finished ceiling into down the line. Now I just need to build up around the fan, the front and the back. In the previous episode I mentioned I was screwing these backer plates of wood when I screwed the fan in, and how that was going to help me down the line, and that's so now I can add another piece of wood on top of this to build this out, and I don't have to glue things to the ceiling like I did in the back there. So I kind of built up around the fan here, so I have something to screw into later on. And really with the fan, all you need to do is build up the front and the back. You don't really need to build up the side. since I'll be running my ceiling pieces this way. Later on, the ceiling piece, this will go in like this, and then the 4 holes here will just screw in here, 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 and here. So now that I have the ceiling done, the next thing I'm gonna work on is framing out the walls. And there's essentially 2 ways you can do this. You can try to maximize the width of the van by lining up your furring strips with these edges of metal here using L brackets like I did in a previous video. And I'll put a link in the description below for the way I did that. The problem with that is you're gonna have this big piece here that's gonna be sticking out that you'll need to hide later on. I used some carpeting to hide here, and then I had cabinets above, and there was like a seat or a refrigerator down here, so you really only saw this section. But this time I think I want to have a nice perfectly flat wall all the way through without this bulging out, breaking up the wall. And then what I'll do is I'll have a cutout for the bed over here. So what I'm doing is I've got one 1x3 here. I've got a 45-degree angle at the top, and this piece is 71.5, and I'm just putting 2 screws, these self-drilling metal screws, through the bottom there, 2 right here, another 2 here, and then 1 at the top. And I'm going to add another one each space here, and then 1 there, all the way down the line. And that should come out past here slightly, which will just give me one perfectly straight wall all the way across. You can kind of decide what you want to do. If you need the extra, you're really only gaining about 1.5 inches by putting the beams back here, and I don't really need the space there. I'd rather have a clean wall and then just have a cutout for the bed here to get the extra width. Now we're just going to flex the furring strip to the contour of the wall here. So you can kind of just push it in, get your screw, drive it in, that's it. Yeah, you definitely want to use these self-drilling metal screws. They go right through the metal without a problem. Make sure you get 2 screws in each part of the metal here, because there is a bit of stress on this beam flexing it. You want to make sure it doesn't pull out. And then I just drive 1 in at the top. I added just 1 little cross beam behind the furring strips here to build it out just a little bit more to clear this beam here. I think it'll just peek through right there and right there, but that'll be hidden. So the part that you're gonna see should have a nice clean wall, because there'll be cabinets up there, and I think the refrigerator or something will be down there. This is the cutout for the bed. I know my bed's going to be 75 long this way and 54 wide this way, so I made the opening 54.5, and that'll give me a little bit of room for the finished walls on each side, about 1/4 inch on each side. And I used some Craig pocket screws here to connect some of this, and it looks pretty good. And then the bed platform will extend through here. Once you get the first side built out, you can take all the measurements, and then what I recommend doing is building it on the ground here with all the pocket screws as one piece and putting it up all together as one piece. It's a lot easier that way, and you can make sure it's going to be identical to the other side this way. And if you're wondering, this top piece here is not meant to support the weight of the bed. It's actually going to be about a ½ inch higher than where those are cut off. That's just to hold the wall panels in, the shiplap when we get to it. So that's pretty much going to do it for this episode. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the future episodes. I'm going to be documenting the whole van build from start to finish, and if you missed the previous ones, the link is in the description. And I'll catch you guys next time. We're going to be doing the wiring and the insulation.